Hello there. I'm not sure if this is morning or evening, so I cannot say good morning or good evening, so I just said hello there. Welcome to this segment on a virtual web conference using asynchronous distance learning technology that I'm going to demonstrate by actually using the technology. So while I'm not here in person, I am here in spirit. I'm Joe Casa, and I've been out of England for 30 years. And so I really would have liked to have been here today, but unfortunately, for both professional and personal reasons, I couldn't make it. This talk follows up some work based on the Systems Engineering to Sydney presentation that was made at last year's INCOSE Symposium. My piece is going to discuss the background to the virtual web conference, then to take you through the conference so you can actually go through it, see what happens, discuss some of the applications, and then some of the issues around it. The background deals with Systems Engineering to Sydney, the paper that I gave last year at the INCOSE conference in Vancouver, and also the fact that we're using the same kind of technology for distance ed communications here at Maryland University College, and we're facing the same kind of problems in the classroom environment that a conference has. And so I'm looking to see if there's any synergism between the conference and the distance ed classroom, and maybe apply knowledge gained in one area to the other area to come up with a better product for both applications. Last year in Vancouver, in the Systems Engineering to Sydney, I discussed the need for enhancing electronically in some way the symposium that's going to take place in Sydney in the year 2001, and discussed an approach for linking symposia and testing it. In the meantime, I've been facing similar problems in my work at the University of Maryland University College in enhancing distance education classes. And so I developed the idea for this virtual web conference. It's a multi-purpose tool, so it can be used for various purposes, as I'll probably discuss later. And I took the opportunity to implement it as a student project in the software engineering capstone course MSWE 617 in spring of 1999. The students actually developed this conference, or the template for this conference, and I'll show you shortly how it works. And it uses the same technology as asynchronous seminars. So both asynchronous seminars in the classroom using distance ed technology and a virtual web conference are identical in the way they've been implemented. So there are plenty of applications for this, both in INCOSE for conferences. One major application on large-scale projects are asynchronous virtual program reviews. There's a tremendous amount of money that can be saved in terms of travel and lack of away from work costs. However, people do have to develop a different mindset to be able to take advantage of this technology. So let's see what the technology has to offer. Here's an example from the system requirements review of the system requirements. There are functional requirements that deal with registration, login and password. There are two types of attendees at the conference, the paid or the registered users and guests. So people need to be able to log in. Then you need to be able to access the presentations. You can communicate with other people using list servers and conference technology, as I'll discuss in a moment. You can view the exhibits, and then for each presentation you can take part in a question and answer session. If you'd like to see more of the project and how it progressed, if you access my website, go to the classes page, look at MSWE 617, you can actually download the presentation packages from the various reviews that the students produced during the course of the semester. The way you access the conference is the same way you access any other conference website. You just go to the URL, and there's a direct link from my page, from my home page, on the experimental web-based virtual conference. and you can see some information here, and this is totally customizable on behalf of the conference manager. It's a pure HTML page and it can be located on any system. This is an example of a typical exhibits page. It's colorful. It consists of logos and words. Each of the logos contain a link to the exhibitor's web page. So you can go from here directly to the exhibitor's web page. It can be a standard page that the company runs, or it can be one that's customized for this particular conference. So the costs to the exhibitors are reduced in that they don't have to come and do show and tell. All the CDs, giveaways that you normally get at conferences can be downloaded from the web page. You're going to miss the little trinkets, but apart from that, it's much more convenient. You can browse at your will, and you will notice prominently the Brighton, England logo displayed, and there is a link directly to the conference page. And here's an example of sponsors. When you click on the logos or the text, you get taken to the sponsor website. These chapters of Incosi took up my offer of a free link from the page. And since this is an experimental conference, let me mention that you, your company, your organization can have a free logo link in either the exhibit or the sponsor area. Access the web page and find out how to do it. Did you see that link on the portal page? When you want to log in as a guest, you type the word guest and the password guest. These are implementation issues because of the COTS software that was using. The students who implemented this project also work for the university in our information technology department, and they built it on a platform that they knew, the same platform that we're using for our distance ed classes. In this way, we can integrate these sessions segment of the conference right into our online classes. On the other hand, paid registration enters a lot more information. This is the custom information that you put in when you register at any conference. The template is customizable so that each time the conference is set up, the required information is needed. So for example, for the Incosi conference, the credit card and other information will not be required because this is an experimental conference on systems and software engineering. When the conference segment is linked to my class sessions that are running in this summer, the registration part won't appear at all because the students are automatically registered once they're in the class. Once you've registered, you as a registered or guest participant will see the atrium area, the sessions, the exhibits, the participants, send mail to special interest groups, or change your own registration information. As a conference administrator, I can see the setup information. So I can set up a presentation, I can set up an advertisement that's linked to a presentation, I can set up list servers, presentation descriptions, I can change particular advertisements and list server information, and in case somebody forgets their password and wants me to reset it, I can reset the password. Now, one of the problems I've had when I go to conferences and I don't know anybody there is by the time I figure out who it is I want to meet, I'm in the taxi cab heading back to the airport. So with this conference, I've built in the capability to identify people with special interests. When you register as a registered participant, you get to choose from a set of special interest topics. It could be risk management, requirements engineering, testing, whatever it is. The conference manager each time can set this up, and you check on those. When you check on those as part of your registration, you are automatically added to a list server on that topic. So you can now start identifying and talking to people in the session, in the conference, to identify people with similar interests and communicate with them. When you click on sessions, you can actually go into the sessions. You can sort on tracks, titles, and authors and find the paper that you're interested in. You can actually do a word search to find papers on particular words in the titles or particular authors. And what's different in this conference is you can actually see the ratings of the people who viewed the presentations and what they thought of it based on beginner or novice, intermediate and expert, and an overall rating. So people who are coming into the conference later can look at the better papers or try and see why some of the other papers weren't any good. And after a while you begin to see who the good authors are and know whose papers to go look for. When you access the paper a little further, you see the abstract, but you also see how long the presentation lasts. One of the advantages of this kind of technology is that you, as the speaker, are not limited to the 10, 15, 20 minutes of a real-life conference. You can take as long as the audience will listen to you to get your point across. Similarly, you, as the audience, do not have to choose which of the real-time tracks to attend. You can view the presentations in parallel tracks asynchronously so that you don't miss a particular presentation. And you can also see the ratings there. And then if you move down the page, you get to see something that's unique to this conference. When you move down to the bottom of the page and you sort of get to viewing, voting, and voicing, as a registered participant, you can view the presentation using Real Media Streaming Audio, or you can download the presentation to your local machine using FTP to review it at your own time and pace. You can participate in the question and answer conference and see what other participants have asked the author and how the authors responded. And you can rate the presentation. The logo at the bottom serves several purposes. In this experimental conference, it could be the logo of the speaker's affiliation. In a paid or a commercial conference, it could be a paid ad. And in a program review, it could be the logos or the agency of the contractors that are making the presentation. So just having that capability there gives the conference a lot of flexibility. It could also be blank, and so you wouldn't see anything. Occasionally in the classroom and in a conference presentation, I'll put a cartoon up to illustrate a point. However, that cartoon does not show up in the handouts because of the copyright issues. So these issues need to be addressed in the virtual conference as to how do we handle the copyright issues for material that would have been used in a real live presentation as opposed to publishing it on the web. One way I overcame the problem in my classroom was to use a joke. So here's an example. A duck walks into a shop and asks the storekeeper if he has any grapes. The storekeeper says no. The duck shrugs and walks away. The next day the duck comes back again and asks if he has any grapes. The man becomes agitated and says, "No, didn't you just ask me that yesterday?" The duck shrugs and walks away. The next day the duck comes back again and asks the man if he has any grapes. The man glares at the duck and says, "No, and if you ask me that one more time, I'm going to nail your ugly little webbed feet to the floor." The duck shrugs and walks away. The next day, the duck comes in and says, "Do you have any nails?" Puzzled, the man says, "No." "Good," the duck says. "Do you have any grapes?" And then I ask my students if they will discuss this within the context of tonight's class. So I've had long and involved in discussions on customer-supplier relationships, or in terms of risk management. Here's an example of the duck practicing risk management. And basically, then we sort of discuss, can the duck trust the storekeeper When the storekeeper says no, he doesn't have any nails, the duck is taking a risk. So it leads to a discussion of how deeply we go into risk management. So there's the audio version of the cartoon demonstrated by the duck joke. As participants, you get to rate the presentation in real time and help benefit other people who come along. So you get to self-evaluate your level of knowledge on the topic. Are you a novice, intermediate, or expert? And on a scale of 1 to 5, how did you rate the presentation, where 1 is poor and 5 is excellent? If you look at the graphics here, you'll see this is from an early version of the conference, and the wording has now been changed. This is how you do the peer-to-peer networking at the conference. You can look down a list of participants who have agreed to make their names public. When you register, there was an option to hide your name. So your name and email and your interests are there. And as a participant, you can look down it and click on the email address so that you can actually send an email to the other person if you want to establish an initial contact. On the other hand, if you want to talk to the entire list server or the entire registrants who have expressed interest in that particular field, you can access the list server, click, and that sends a message out to the list server. So the conference has got built into it the ability to identify and communicate with people of special interests of the same as you. So as I explained earlier, this requirement came from my personal experience, where I'd go to a conference, I'd know nobody, and it was real tough to find people with similar interests. In a real conference, I'd love to see lapel badges with stickers on them identifying areas of interest, so at least I could go up to the person, introduce myself, and say, oh, I see we have the green sticker in common. Would you like to talk, kind of thing. Well, you can do exactly the same thing electronically here. So to summarize the applications, it's a virtual web conference. It's a research tool for students. If it's populated with the latest papers, or at least the last 2 or 3 years worth of presentations in systems and software engineering, it will be a good research source for students. And in a virtual program review, it allows the operations concept review, system requirements review, system design review to be presented. It can be presented over a period of time so people can attend it, view it, think about what they're seeing. And remember, the purpose of a review is to document consensus. It's not to discuss anything controversial, as I teach my students. And then it becomes a record for posterity, so you can always go back and see what were the people thinking of at the time of the design review, what were they thinking of at the time of the requirements review, and maybe you can understand things that have become vague or lost as undocumented knowledge tends to disappear these days as people leave. So here the whole material can be preserved and will be available further down in the schedule. It's a test tool for communication techniques. What kind of communication techniques would students and also conference participants prefer? List server technology or conference technology? One issue that I'd like to explore is what are the real requirements for seeing the presenter in such a distance mode? Will a picture like you see here in this presentation be enough, or do you really need the talking head? The little talking head image that I've seen on several examples of this kind of presentation, to me, really don't add anything. I'd much rather see the presentation graphics and a picture of the presenter, but I'm interested in how other people feel. I'm looking for your help in actually populating the conference. While I have the template, I'm looking for the actual presentations. So the process flow for installing presentations into the conference sessions are: you start with PowerPoint transparencies,
Then you add and edit the audio using software such as Goldwave, which is available as shareware. You can download it and use it, and if you like it, you register it. If you do register it, it's only $20 or so. Excellent value for money. You can find it on the exhibits page on the conference. This produces WAV files or WAV format files, which you then link to the presentation. You publish that to the real media format, and then you post the presentation on the web in the appropriate session. So, ideally, authors should supply the presentation in real media format. But since that's a $40 piece of software and you're only going to use it once, you don't have to buy it. You can supply PowerPoint transparencies and WAV files. If you can't do that, an audio cassette with the voice and a set of transparencies will do fine, as long as you leave a gap of about 5 seconds between the audio on each transparency. I gave my students in my classroom class a chance to do their presentations in online format instead of doing it in the classroom in the spring of 1999. I didn't expect any to take me up on that offer, but 3 did. So, if you've got a presentation that's been published in a conference in the last 3 years on systems or software engineering, please, let's put it up for posterity. It's a plug-in to our WebTyco distance ed capabilities. For example, if I ask a guest speaker to make a presentation in one class in the classroom, it happens once, and that speaker, that presentation, is not available for future iterations of the class. In this mode it is. Once I've captured the guest speaker's presentation, I can have that guest speaker make the same presentation over again as long as it's current. So finally, further information about the conference is available on my website, worldwideweb.universityofmaryland.edu/jcasa. What are the differences between this presentation and a live one? In my class last semester, I gave the students a chance to hear one of the online presentations in the classroom and watch 2 students present the live presentations, and the only difference the students came up with, and this is the same response I get each time when I ask the question of the audience, think, what is the difference between this canned presentation and a live one? The major difference is you can't interrupt. And in many instances, many presenters don't allow interruptions. They want to go all the way through. I've given this kind of conference session over the telephone. 5 years ago, I was in Silver Spring giving a presentation in Minneapolis, and I'd sent the slides ahead of time, and somebody there flipped the transparencies, and I gave the presentation over the telephone. There was absolutely no feedback at all from the audience. And 2 weeks ago, at the Intelligence Community's 4th Annual Desktop Collaboration Conference in Virginia Beach, Virginia, I sat in on a presentation, and it was almost the same thing, except the presenter was in Hong Kong at City University making a presentation. Somebody in the room was flipping the transparencies, and we had an internet link, and the voice came in over the internet. And we used Microsoft's NetMedia for questions and comments, which was slightly better, but not that much. I'd like to hear from you, questions and comments, jcasa at my UK email address at iee.org. Thank you very much.